Welcome into the August 13th edition of the Nate State Show here on YouTube. You can also find us Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'll post some clips on my Twitter. That's at Nate State U as well. So just some plug in there before we get started here. And today we're going to be discussing some, I believe, interesting topics. We're going to be talking about here, as you see, pretty much the entire college football schedule pulled up. We're going to be talking about the most impactful games of the season. We're also going to be delivering my top 10 teams that can win the national championship, as well as discussing some college football playoff nightmare scenarios that might come into play at the end of the year and how that would shape or reshape the college football landscape. But let us start off on the right page, in the right way, with discussing the pretty much most impactful game every week. Now, not necessarily the best game every single week, just the most impactful. And that is a big difference because there are some really big games that might not have as much impact on the college football playoff as some other potentially smaller games. And we will be bringing those up later into the discussion here as well. So should be a fun time. Let's start here with week 0. And week 0 features North Carolina TCU. Features Jacksonville State, North Dakota State, features Memphis UNLV, but the game I'm going to go with here, quite simply, is NC State at Virginia. Now, this game was originally supposed to be in Rio. The details there didn't quite work out. It did all feel hastily planned, and so that all fell through, thankfully. I support more games being played on campus. This one is on campus. This will be in Scott Stadium in Charlottesville, Virginia. Do you know Scott Stadium hasn't sold out since 2008? Isn't that nuts? Now, I have been at Scott Stadium before. Scott Stadium is a pretty interestingly designed stadium. You know, the whole grass hill on one side. The rest of the kind of makes a horseshoe. It's a little bit old, a lot of bit old, almost 100 years old. But it does have some nice charm to it for sure. So the fact they haven't sold that out since 2008 is not great as far as the UVA fan base goes. However, if there was any time to sell out a stadium, it'd be at the end of August when there's not a lot else going on. And quite frankly, you got a good opponent rolling into town. Week 0. When else are you going to sell it out? This is the perfect time to sell out Scott, NC State, and Virginia. And besides the fact, this could actually have major ramifications on the college football playoff. Now you might be thinking, NC State and Virginia, really? Are they actually going to have major ramifications? Now here, let me explain. Virginia and NC State, they both have very weak schedules. We're talking 65th and 68th worst schedules in the Power 5. Virginia's the 65th, NC State's the 68th. 68 is the worst schedule. NC State has the worst, easiest schedule in the Power 5. Virginia has the 4th easiest. So these two teams, if they're any good, should have an inside track to the college football playoff, but that starts with week 0 playing each other. Last year, NC State nipped Virginia in week 2 in what was a non-conference game, which ended up having massive ramifications on the rest of Virginia's season and kind of took them out of the at-large race. And so when they lost the ACC championship, they had no shot at the playoff. So Virginia looking for revenge. Virginia looking to sell out their stadium. Finally, Virginia looking to get on the right track to start their season. Virginia should be a better team. We will be ranking and discussing all 138 teams in 2 weeks' time, August 27th. We're going to give you the full FBS preview, and we'll discuss more then. We'll also unveil my top 25 next week. So just some harbinger of stuff to come. But Virginia, NC State, most impactful game of week 0, could be huge, setting up the ACC race and the entire rest of the ACC season. Week 1, the Thursday slate, which we will be going on there on September 3rd. We're going to be live discussing, because I can't actually show the game, but live streaming this Colorado-Georgia Tech game. We'll be going live. I know the game starts at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. We'll be going there live at 6. So also going on at that time will be Idaho, Utah, UAB, Illinois. That game kind of exists. That game will also be going, so should be an interesting little slate there, but nothing too impactful. Same with this Friday, although these two late games could bring some trouble. Miami and USC figure to be pretty good teams. Those two teams will definitely hang around, no question about it. But week one, as we just kind of scroll down and page down here, we see Baylor and Auburn. I'm not too high on either of those teams, honestly. Tulane, Duke, Boise State, Oregon, okay, it's fine. Nothing too major. Page down, page down, page down. A lot of FCS, FBS opponents. Not a great week one. In fact, a very poor week one. Now, we do see Clemson and LSU here. Clemson and LSU, that should be a good game, but it's not the game I'm going to pick. No, we're going to Sunday. We got the Apple Cup that day. We got a game in Lambeau. That should be a lot of fun, but I'm going to go with Louisville and Ole Miss. Now, why Louisville and Ole Miss is the most impactful game of week one? Well, Louisville figures to be a team that could absolutely win the ACC, or at least make the ACC title game and make a little run at the college football playoff. If they beat Ole Miss, that gets a whole lot more real, so it's huge for Louisville. For Ole Miss, you can't stumble right out of the gate. It's not after last year, not after what happened. You just can't do it. And everybody's going to be very curious to see what is going on with Trinidad Chambliss and Keewan Lacey and Pete Golden. The whole situation down in Oxford, that should get put under the microscope. It will be. And it starts at Nissan Stadium there in Nashville, with which should be a very fun game between Louisville and Ole Miss. Also, SMU and Florida State being that Labor Day game. That'll be a lot of fun as well. Okay, so week two. Moving on through this most impactful schedule. This one is, honestly, fairly straightforward. Some decent ones here. P4 vs. P4, Wake Forest and Purdue. Michigan, Oklahoma. Arizona State, Texas A&M. Week two is actually pretty legit. Way better than week one. Week 0 and week 1 are almost warm-up acts. Arizona, BYU. That should be pretty awesome. Tennessee, Georgia Tech. That's a home game for Georgia Tech, so looking forward to that. But it's gotta be Ohio State, and it's Texas. Okay, so that might be 1 versus 2. We get to see Arch Manning take on the Ohio State defense. That whole Texas offense should be amazing and very legit. And they get to play a big game at home. And, two of the premier brands in college football going after each other. Both teams can afford to take a loss, but the rest of the schedule is pretty tough for both teams. And so a win here would cement your case for the college football playoff and seal it, even if you were only to go 10-2. If you lose this game and you go 9-3, just like we saw with Texas last year, you could conceivably be left out. So, unquestionably, that's the choice in week 2. Week 3 also has a rather unquestionable choice. We're going to go to Oxford, Mississippi. And for the second week out of 4, we got an Ole Miss game. LSU at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin return to Oxford. We should pray for times like these in college football. This should be phenomenal. I mean, as exciting as you can get. You got the snake that is Lane Kiffin going back to the old stomping grounds of Oxford, Mississippi. And I know there's a lot of return games when it comes to Lane Kiffin. A return game to Tennessee, a return game to USC, a return game to Bama, a return game to FAU even. And now a return game to Ole Miss. I know the return game to FAU never actually happened, but it could, theoretically. Now you return to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss really, really, really doesn't like you. And a local kickoff of 6:30 means they're going to be very, very liquored up, which means a very, very hostile environment. Even when tickets are like $600, it'll still be very hostile. Should be theoretically should be one of the best games of the season. We don't actually know how good LSU and Ole Miss will be. They're definitely question marks. A lot more questions than answers for both those teams, but it's still going to be high level. Boy, I'm looking forward to that one. That one should be a ton of fun. Week 4. Week 4 is actually pretty loaded. It starts out pretty good here. Liberty at Coastal. Love that. How about South Carolina, Alabama? How about Vandy, Auburn? How about Ole Miss, Florida? How about Oklahoma, Georgia? Texas A&M, LSU? This is a not particularly miss week. I mean, there's just, it feels like there's more good games than bad ones. Oklahoma State, West Virginia could be big in the Big 12. How about Iowa and Michigan? How about Illinois and Ohio State? How about Wisconsin, Penn State? How about Oregon, USC? But we're going to go back up here, and we're going to pick Oklahoma, Georgia. Georgia is probably top 5, top 7. Oklahoma is probably top 8, top 12, somewhere in there. So we could get a top 10 matchup here. They both probably should be at least 2-1, 3-0 at this point. Could be if Oklahoma loses to Michigan and then they lose to Georgia, they win their other 2. 2-2 is not a great start. You pretty much have to run the table the rest of the way if you're Oklahoma there. That means this game could be full of stakes, and it's in the Sanford Stadium there in Athens, Georgia. Georgia just doesn't really lose at home. Obviously, the Alabama game last year was kind of a disaster for them. That was their first home loss in like 3 or 4 years. I think they had something like a 33 home game winning streak going into that one. So Georgia's an incredibly tough place to play. Oklahoma could conceivably have a loss going into that game. This could be majorly impactful. It could all but eliminate one of our better teams in the sport this year. But Oklahoma could also go in there and beat Georgia. If John Mateer is healthy and he is as good as we've seen him be, Oklahoma will be a player in that game. They'll be a player this whole season. This is a big game. This is a fun game. This is a game that will be and should be given the hype it deserves. Okay, so a lot more to get to here. Let's move on to Week 5. Now, Week 5, a lot more sparse. Still some good stuff in here. Vandy, Georgia. Little rivalry game here between Alabama and Mississippi State. Got Auburn going to Tennessee. We'll see what the status of both teams going into that would be. But I'm going to choose Miami at Clemson. Now, Clemson, I'm not sure about Clemson. But let's just live in the world for just a second where Clemson goes to Baton Rouge in Week 1 and wins. And then they keep winning. And they're undefeated going into this game. And Miami is probably also going to be undefeated going into this game. And they're going to what will probably be a night game in Memorial Stadium with Howard's Rock at Clemson. That is the definition of a hostile environment. And it's one Miami didn't truly face last year. And this could be Miami's first true test, one of their only true tests. Miami should be head and shoulders above the rest of the ACC. But let's just live in a hypothetical scenario for a second that Clemson has a better start than we think. And Miami is as good as we think, but they have to go on the road. Going on the road in college football is always hard. It only gets harder when you have to go to somewhere called Death Valley, and it's called Death Valley for a good reason. Could be a night game. That could be all kinds of trouble for Miami. If Miami were to lose that, it'd bring a ton of impact to the rest of the sport, almost a snowball effect. Let's live in a world where Clemson loses to LSU, though. And this would still be the most impactful game of the week, because if Clemson loses, that's going to be it for them. I don't see really a true path to a 10-2, 11-2, 10-2 at-large ACC team. At least it gets very difficult from there. Now, I don't think Clemson's going to be good enough for that, but you never know. Dabo Swinney can be a wizard at times. Week 6. Now, Week 6, you got a couple of good games. Even in the early slate, we got to get some Tuesdays. You got Southern Miss at Troy, first Tuesday game of the season. How about Florida State at Louisville? We brought up Louisville earlier. Florida State could be all right. They also could be egregiously bad, so we'll see. But this is a great Saturday. Georgia and Alabama. Tennessee, Arkansas. How about Texas A&M, Mizzou? How about some Big 12 love? We got Kansas and Utah. Virginia Tech goes to Cal. Indiana. Indiana goes to Nebraska. USC goes all the way to Penn State. UCLA maybe could give Oregon a little bit of trouble, but I'm going to go with Red River here. I'm going to go the Red River Shootout, not the Red River Rivalry, the Red River Shootout, Texas and Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. Now, Oklahoma has a tough schedule, clearly. I mean, we have the Michigan game, which was second on our docket there in week 2. We already picked them in that Georgia game. Now they have to play Texas. This should be fun. It should be a shootout. You got Arch Manning, you got John Mateer, you got Venables and Sarkisian, you got basically the defense of Oklahoma going against the offense of Texas in a game which always brings an incredible environment. I'm looking forward to this one strongly. That is week 6, Texas, OU. That one it's a rivalry game, always brings the magic. Top 5 rivalry game easily. Probably top 4. Past that, top 3, we can discuss that at some point when it's more off-season-ish. I don't think it beats the game or the Iron Bowl. I don't really necessarily think it beats Army-Navy either. I'd have it at 4, but it's definitely top 5. And if it's outside your top 5, you're not watching the sport closely enough, quite frankly. Okay, so this is week 7. This takes place October 18th. Some good ones. Virginia goes to SMU. But, I mean, clearly, it's going to be Ohio State and Indiana. That game should be absolutely phenomenal. It's the biggest game in Indiana home history. Indiana will be 6-0 going into that game. Their schedule going into that, unless they somehow lose to Nebraska, which I don't see happening at all, unless Anthony Calandria turns into McJesus himself. But Indiana should be 6-0, no problem, no sweat. And now they play Ohio State. And if Indiana loses that one, Indiana kind of loses some of that aura they've been building, having won, if they were 6-0 at that point, their last 22 games. That's a whole lot of aura going into that one when they take on Ohio State. And Ohio State is obviously Ohio State. And Ohio State's going to continue to be Ohio State for a long time. That's going to be a lot of fun. Ohio State, let's just live in the world that they lose to Texas. Then they lose to Indiana. Now you're 10-2. You've lost to some really good teams. Or not 10-2. I think you're, 4 or 5-2 at that point. You've lost to some really good teams. But those losses are starting to build, and you still have some tough games left on your schedule. You still have to go to USC. You still have to play Michigan in the game. It starts to get nervous for Ohio State, does it not? And they could conceivably lose both those games as well. So, might be, if they did lose that, and they lost to Texas earlier, get some nervous times there in Columbus, and that'd be kind of fun for the rest of us, not going to lie. All right, Penn State, Michigan also that week. Nebraska goes to Oregon. Wisconsin goes to UCLA. Good week for the Big Ten. Really good week for the Big Ten, week 7. Week 8. This is actually one where I have a pick that's a little bit off the board. Most people are going to have that. But Friday, we have a rematch of the ACC championship game. Duke goes to Virginia. We got NC State going to Stanford as well. Like I said earlier, that's one of the tougher games NC State will play, going across the country to play Stanford. Stanford's probably not even going to be that great, but NC State just doesn't have a very difficult schedule. Now, Texas A&M and Alabama, very good. Ole Miss, Texas. I could have chosen that one, absolutely. Houston, Utah should be a massive game in the Big 12, absolutely under consideration. Indiana and Michigan. Now you're wondering, Nate, what in the world did you end up picking? Well, my friends, I am going to pick one of the better games in the G5, G6, we'll see all season. Boise State goes to Washington State in a game that will be played on the USA Network. How is that the most impactful game in the week, Mr. Nate? Let me tell you. Okay, Washington State, they might be good. they might be mid. They'll be somewhere in the middle there, likely. I would figure Washington State gets to bowl eligibility. Boise State has a chance to go out there and go 11-1 and make the college football playoff. It is absolutely all in front of them, 100%. Maddox Madsen's still their quarterback. They have a great running game. They have the defense. They have the support. They have the finances. Boise State has everything they need to make the run and be the G6 team. But they have a couple of tough road games, and going to Pullman, Washington, and play in this one, that's especially tough for Boise State. Now, Boise State can 100% win the game, but Washington State has home magic as well. And home magic goes a long way towards winning football games. And I can 100% see the Cougs winning this one and taking Boise State right off the map in the G6, because when you're playing that G6 and chasing that playoff, you have no room for error unless you're somehow Tulane last year, which shouldn't have even happened. But, yeah, that should be pretty much one of the biggest G6 games of the season. We also get LSU Auburn that day. That game is kind of very much dependent on how good Auburn is. This is week 9. Week 9 is Halloween week. Should be a lot of fun. Not a lot talking in the early schedule. Nothing really big in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But we get to Saturday. And Saturday brings us some bangers. Sort of. I mean, it's still a quiet week, but there's still bangers out there. Arizona, Texas Tech. That was my second choice this week. Should be a lot of fun in the Big 12 there. Georgia Tech and Pitt. We got Indiana hosting Minnesota. Wisconsin at Iowa. Good old-fashioned rivalry there in the Big 12, or Big 10 rather. But how about a newer rivalry, so to speak, in the Big 10? Two teams that haven't played each other since they joined conference ranks. We're going to go with Ohio State at Southern Cal, USC, in the LA Coliseum. That game probably, because it's a West Coast game, avoids a big noon kickoff slot. So might be a CBS, might be a big Saturday night game on NBC. Could be a lot of fun in that case. Wouldn't it be a great spectacle to see Ohio State go to the Coliseum in a night game in the latest day of October and play USC, who could be still in contention at that point? And let's live in the world, because we're choosing the most impactful game. Let's live in the world where Ohio State has 2 losses and is playing for their lives at the Coliseum on a Saturday Halloween night. Is that not peak college football? If that doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what does. That should be incredible. Let's see, who does Georgia? Florida Georgia is also that day. Not Jacksonville this year. Jacksonville's getting remodeled, so it'll be in Atlanta, which is disappointing. I would love to see that in Athens or Gainesville, but I think it would have been Athens this year had it gone on the rotation. But no, we can't have things like that in current college football. Week 10. This is the best week of the season. If there's ever a time to get somebody invested in college football, it is week 10. It is beautiful. And it starts even here on a Friday. VTech going to SMU. If James Franklin and Virginia Tech are any good, that'll be a huge game and widely watched there on a Friday night. But Arkansas, Auburn, Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama at LSU, Georgia at Ole Miss, Texas at Missouri, BYU and Utah, Michigan State. But I'm going to circle back here. With so many big games and so many just fantastic finishes loading, who am I going to choose? Well, looky down here. Miami at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to be top 5 preseason. I'll just let you in on that right now. Miami's going to be top 7 preseason. Both teams have cakewalk schedules up to this point. Both teams should, or at least could, be undefeated going in here. Notre Dame does play at BYU at some point in there. I think we missed that accidentally. Sorry. But, this should be a big game, a big deal, huge for both teams. But it's not what I'm going with. No, let us scroll back up. BYU and Utah is the most impactful game of the Week 10 schedule. A Week 10 schedule full of banger after banger. This is the most impactful game? Yes, it is. And here is why. Utah is going to be that good. They're going to be right there. I know Whittingham left, but most of the rest of the roster did not. They have to play some offensive pieces, but Dampier is still there. That defense is going to be just as good as always. And honestly, Utah is playing at home. And BYU is conceivably going to be 1, maybe 2 losses at this point, unless they majorly disappoint us. And Utah is going to be in the same boat. So this is probably a Big 12 championship game elimination game. This is probably, potentially, a CFP elimination game. And it's a rivalry game. Every little piece of that combined, or strung out separate, makes it big. Combined, it makes it massively impactful. And I'm just projecting at this point that may be completely untrue. This may be sort of irrelevant come Saturday, November 7th. But for right now, sitting in my little mini studio that I made, I'm going to sit here and say BYU, Utah, the game to watch in Week 10. I know I'm going to be looking forward and talking a ton about Miami Notre Dame that week. Should be a lot of fun. But personally, I'm going to go with BYU and Utah. Week 11, this week is kind of a little bit of a detox for us, but we have a good Thursday matchup here. Memphis at USF. That should be a nice bit of fun. Friday, not seeing too much that's too interesting there. Illinois, UCLA would be a very fun basketball game, but this isn't basketball, is it? Week 11, Utah coming off the BYU game, plays at Arizona. That should be fun. Alabama at Vandy. See if Alabama can finally get some revenge at the First Bank Stadium there, which should be finally done with renovations. That took a while. Michigan and Oregon is this week. We got Purdue, Iowa. Southern Cal goes to Indiana. Tennessee at Texas A&M. That could be actually quite interesting, and here's why. So Texas A&M is hosting the Blackout that day. And the Blackout game always brings a ton of noise there to College Station, an added layer. That could be just a really cool environment. A 1-of-1 that day, a 1-of-1, honestly, in the whole season. If Texas A&M fans are anything, they are passionate. They do get beat up by their team, but you know what? Respect to Texas A&M and their weird traditions. But in this week, I'm going to go with Texas and LSU. Now, LSU might be way out of it at this point. It's definitely possible, but let's just live in a world where they're not. And Texas is coming to Baton Rouge. And Texas is playing Lane Kiffin and what would be, in this scenario, a very good LSU team. Texas might have a loss or two at this point. If the game against Oklahoma and Ohio State doesn't go their way, this could be an elimination game. Whew, that would be a lot of fun. Would be a lot of fun if that was the case. So I could be completely wrong here. This game could be completely irrelevant. But if we live in a world where it's not, and I'm choosing to live in a world where it's not, boy, it's going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Week 12. This is kind of our warm-up to rivalry week, so not going to be the greatest games ever, but we do still have some impactful measures. Let's scroll a page down here. UCLA goes to Michigan. Could be nice. Ohio State goes to Nebraska. Could be a late season, scrappy game that Ohio State has to barely survive in. I feel like we've seen that before when Ohio State's played Nebraska. Indiana goes to Washington. That could be absolutely massive. Not too much in the G6 slate there, although San Diego State does go to Boise State. That could be very big as well in the G6. Make no bones about that. But I am not going to go with any of those. No, instead, I will go with a game that sets up a game. Texas A&M and OU. So if everything goes to plan, this should be an elimination game. And let's just live in a world where it is. Texas A&M goes to Memorial Stadium. That is a fantastic environment any time of day. And it's going to be a lot of fun. That place will be rocking. And by the end of that day/night, I think one team will be out of it. And when we go over to rivalry week, I think we're going to live in a world where the team that is out of it is probably going to be Oklahoma. Because my biggest game this week, and we'll also give you a Saturday game because it's rivalry week, can't really just choose one. But I think Texas and Texas A&M is going to be the biggest game that weekend. I think that has a very good shot at being an elimination game for both teams. I'm just looking at the Texas schedule. That's so hard. Texas A&M, that's so hard as well. And, Texas plays like 3-4 big games, 3-4 losable games. A&M plays similar. So there's just a chance that this isn't the biggest game that weekend. But it'll get paid attention to no matter how you slice it. It is the 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Friday night, day after Thanksgiving kickoff on ABC. That is always going to be huge. They've made it into a bigger deal now. That's one of the best things college football has done. I love the Friday setup to rivalry week Saturday, and Texas A&M being that new tradition on that Friday night. I hope that's a thing for years to come. It was great last year. It's going to be great this year. That it will be the most impactful game that weekend, I think. For Saturday, that could be sneaky good. Virginia v. Tech. USC, UCLA, obviously a fantastic matchup as far as colors go. The Palmetto Bowl will probably be nothing, but if nothing else, it will be tense. The Big 12 doesn't really believe in rivalry week, so they kind of get ruled out of relevancy here. Notre Dame plays at Syracuse. That's pretty underwhelming. But Michigan at Ohio State, the game should be fantastic. Ohio State could again be playing for their lives there at home. Last time Ohio State played the rivalry game, at home, they lost as a 3-touchdown favorite. So, I think it's pretty interesting any way you slice it. All right, Week 14 is championship weekend. Friday, I think their biggest one will be the Pac-12 title game. I think the biggest championship will be the SEC championship in Mercedes-Benz because I feel like that could be huge as it pertains to seeding. The Big Ten also enters that conversation 100%. Week 15, I wonder what the biggest game is that week. I truly wonder. I wonder. Oh, okay, cool. Decided Army-Navy. All right, moving on. So that wraps up the most impactful game each week. I'll just run through the list here as far as it goes. Week 0, I have UVA taking on NC State. Week 1, I got Ole Miss and Louisville. Week 2, I got Texas and Ohio State. Week 3, LSU, Ole Miss. Week 4, Oklahoma, Georgia. Week 5, Miami, Clemson. Week 6, Texas, OBU. Week 7, Indiana and Ohio State. Week 8, Boise State and Wazoo. Week 9, Ohio State, USC. Week 10, Utah and Brigham Young. Week 11, Texas and LSU. Week 12, Texas A&M and Oklahoma. Week 13, UT Austin taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. And obviously Army-Navy there to cap things off. Also throw in Michigan, Ohio State for that Saturday rivalry week game. All right, so that wraps up the most impactful game each week. Obviously, that was rather long-winded. We went over 30 minutes there, but it's important. It's important to know your schedule ahead of time. It's important that if your cousin is having a wedding that weekend, you know when to say no on a college football Saturday because the games are just too good, and you don't want to miss them for somebody you don't talk to ever again. And I know that's the case for some of you, so don't give me too much flack. So now we're going to take my top 10 teams that can actually win the Natty. Now you see them there at the bottom of the screen, all 10 of them. Those are the 10 teams I would pick right now who can win the Natty. And I'm going to sort them here a couple different ways. So as far as the coaching tier goes, I go Indiana and I go Georgia. I don't doubt Curt Cignetti and I don't doubt Kirby Smart. Downing either of those gentlemen has proven to be the peril of college football media analysts everywhere. I don't want to make that mistake in my first season. They are absolutely title contenders, and I'll kind of place them here in order as we go along here explaining this. Now, talent and potential, two different things, but very key differences. Talent, proven men that can go out there and win college football games for you. Potential, players we really like, but they haven't gone out and proven that they can win at the highest level. And honestly, in that, I'll put Texas Tech, just because Will Hammond hasn't proven he can win at the highest level just yet. Also haven't proven they can win at the highest level just yet, John Mateer and OU. They could get there, for sure. They haven't quite proven it yet. Same with Marcel Reed and Texas A&M. 100% on a prove-it basis right now. And now here is where the gasps come for this hot take that isn't hot at all. Ohio State is in the potential tier. Now, I know 2 years ago they won the title, and I know Jeremiah Smith was on that team, but most of the players on that team have either gone to the NFL or they've transferred elsewhere. And so it's mostly new players at this point for Ohio State, including quarterback Julian Sayin. I haven't quite seen enough out of Sayin for Ohio State, and he is going to be the player that has to lead Ohio State. I haven't quite seen enough for me to put him in the talent grouping yet. Now, this isn't particularly in order, but that does fill you in a little bit, at least, of how I feel about Ohio State at the current moment. So that means our talent group is the Miami Hurricanes, the Texas Longhorns, the Oregon Mighty Ducks, and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Irish, I mean, a little bit of the same situation there with CJ Carr for sure, and I get that, but the defense is super proven. Much more proven than Ohio State's is. Ohio State, I mean, you just had Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese head out to go play in the NFL. They were both top 7 picks. Replacing that, it's difficult. It's just very difficult. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of these other schools haven't had to replace in the same way. I know Miami had to replace Bain and Hakeem Mesidor there, but they did a good job replacing those. We'll get more into Miami here in 2 weeks' time. So, now, who is my top 10? Who do I actually think is going to go on and have a true chance of winning this? Now, I will give my case for 7 teams. Now, 3 teams don't really have a case, and they're all found in the potential tier. Texas A&M doesn't have a case. Oklahoma doesn't actually have a true case at winning the title. Neither does A&M. I just don't think they got that dog in them. And I have good reason for that. Texas A&M lost a lot of talent. Nobody within Texas A&M has really won anything as far as natties go. And now I know new teams win the title every year, and Indiana certainly was in the same exact position last year. But Indiana was able to overcome. Texas A&M has shown they have an inability to overcome being hexed because it truly feels like they are cursed. Basically year in, year out, which is honestly hilarious to watch, but it does make me want to avoid them. Oklahoma absolutely has championship pedigree, and they have championship winners within that building. But I just don't fully trust them yet. I would love to see them take one more year forward. Last year was great, going from barely bowl eligibility to making the college football playoff. If they can make another step forward and maybe win a playoff game, I'll be much more amenable to going all in on them next year. And same situation with Texas Tech. Gotta win a playoff game, boys. Just gotta do it. You have the resources. You got Cody Campbell. Just go out there and win. I believe you can do it, but I can't put you in that championship category until I see that. I mean, I had Indiana going to the college football playoff last year, but I didn't see him winning the title for a lot of the same reasons I'm listing now. But they obviously did win the title, and so maybe I'll be totally a fool. Maybe LSU can win it. Maybe Ole Miss can win it. Maybe Tennessee can win it. And now I'm saying that maybe Lane Kiffin's school can win it. Maybe Lane Kiffin's former school can win it. Maybe Lane Kiffin's former school can win it. not FAU, but maybe Lane Kiffin's former school can win it, and maybe his former school can win it as well in USC. So and Tennessee. So we're just everybody who's missed just slightly is in the Lane Kiffin stratosphere of bubble. And so maybe the Lane Kiffin stratosphere bubble wins the title. Maybe I'm wrong on that front too. Maybe the team that wins the title isn't on this list whatsoever. But I feel fairly confident that the national championship winner is currently on your screen right now. Okay, so Ohio State can win the title. Ryan Day has won the title. Ryan Day has also found a way to lose to both these men recently, which makes me a little bit more worried and why he isn't in the coaching tier. Also, let's just face it, Ryan Day has had the best rosters year in, year out. Ohio State probably should have more than one title. I mean, you had C.J. Stroud. You had 4 NFL players, top first-rounders, as your wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4 at one point, and you didn't win the title that year. Ryan Day isn't in the coaching tier. Now, Ryan Day is a very good coach, a very great coach, but I have not seen him win at the level he should be winning at, and that makes me a little bit concerned. Okay, Cristobal and Miami, very good team, very championship worthy, but they'd be my 7th team. I would throw, honestly, in at 6, and I know I'm down into him to my own peril, but I'd throw in Georgia. I like Stockton a lot. This is not Kirby Smart's most talented Georgia team ever, and that'll probably hold him back a little bit. At the 5 slot, gasp upon all gasps, I have Ohio State. I would love to stir up controversy with Ohio State and put them at 1 or 2 because I think that could create a 1-2 matchup versus Texas in week 2. I don't trust Ohio State's team just yet. I'm a little bit lower on Ohio State than a lot of other people are to this point, but the Buckeyes could obviously be right there as well. Okay, Indiana, I'm going to throw at 3, Notre Dame's at 4. I got Oregon and Texas there as 2-1. Now, as you will see next week when I reveal my top 25, my playoff bracket, and my championship pick, the college football playoff I don't think will play off exactly like this, but I'll leave the cliffhanger there, so you'll have to tune in next week. August 20th, we'll go live at the same time. That should be a lot of fun. Okay, so those are the 7 teams that I think can win the title. Those are the 10 teams I think can win the title. Just misses are Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama-ish, and a team like Brigham Young would be in there as well. Okay, so that sets the scene now as we get into some college football playoff nightmare scenarios. Now, what is a college football playoff nightmare scenario, you may ask? Well, that is an absolutely fantastic question, and I'm glad you asked. So, a nightmare scenario is when the committee is given basically an ultimatum. Choose option A, get consequence B. Choose option B, get consequence A. Last year we saw that directly with the Miami and Notre Dame situation. The committee tried it's going to work out in the end approach to it. It didn't work out in the end. They had to make a decision that basically crumbled all credence that the committee had created over the last month before the selection show, if that committee had any credence at all, and it completely collapsed. So the final decision made a lot of sense, but it didn't make sense of how they had chosen the teams to that point previously. Now, if you aren't remembering, Miami was originally ranked, I believe, 8 spots behind Notre Dame. Notre Dame didn't lose, somehow fell 2 spots, and knocked themselves out of the playoff by not losing, by dominating everybody in their way the rest of the year. Notre Dame started the year 0-2, won the last 10. Miami had 2 losses, one in October, one on the 1st of November, and therefore they started way behind where the Irish started. But Miami made up ground because everybody else in front of them lost, and eventually everybody else lost enough that Miami and Notre Dame were put right next to each other, and Miami had beaten Notre Dame in week 1. Head-to-head has to matter, and so Miami jumped Notre Dame, knocked Notre Dame out of the playoff, but it created a nightmare scenario in the process. Okay, so let's get into potential nightmare scenarios here. And now I don't have a visual component to this, so audio people rejoice. But, okay, so let's just say BYU runs the table in the regular season. They knock off Notre Dame at home. They knock off Utah on the road. And they go to the Big 12 title game and they play Texas Tech or they play Arizona. And they lose. All right, now you're at 12-1 and you're not a champion out of the Big 10. Let's say, or Big 12. Now let's say the Big 10 gets a crazy season. And you somehow find your way with Penn State being a one-loss Big 10 team. And now you have to juxtapose 12-1 non-champion BYU from the Big 12 and 11-1 non-champion Penn State from the Big 10. Very unlikely, but it could happen. So who's in that case? And what does that say if you choose Penn State? Does that basically confirm the theory of a Big 2? Does that perpetuate the dream of a Super League? Or if you choose BYU in that scenario, what does that say about the Big 10? Are they clearly not actually the cream of the crop when it comes to conferences? It could go either way there, quite frankly. Okay, so let's give you another one. Let's take the Big 12 again. Let's say Texas Tech goes 11-1, and then they lose in the Big 12 title game to BYU. So now you have 11-2 non-champion Texas Tech. And let's say Ohio State loses to USC, they lose to Texas, and they lose to Indiana. So now you have 9-3 non-champion Ohio State. And those two teams are the two teams that are on the cut line of the playoff. Who does that get in? Now, you can argue Ohio State had a brutal schedule, strength of schedule has to matter. Or you could argue wins and losses have to matter. That would be the argument we would see. You can argue, if Texas Tech hadn't played that game and go 11-1 instead of 11-2, they're absolutely in the college football playoff. And that's probably what the committee would do. But if they didn't and they went with Ohio State, does that mean the committee favors brands only? Does that mean the committee has made a major step towards strength of schedule mattering? Does that mean the committee has some sort of weird prejudice against Texas Tech after the Sorsby debacle this offseason? That would have a lot of questions, and questions that we just can't answer. Okay, now let's get to the toughest one of them all. We mentioned earlier that Virginia has the 4th easiest schedule in the country. Well, not the country, but the Power 4. Okay, so in the Power 4, Virginia has the 4th easiest schedule. Let's just say they go 11-1. Could happen. Now, let's say Texas loses to Ohio State. They lose to Oklahoma. They lose to Texas A&M. They go 9-3. So you got 9-3 Texas with a very difficult schedule, and 11-1 Virginia with a very easy schedule. Who gets in? If it's Texas, does that mean the end of the ACC? If it's Virginia, has the SEC dominance completely eroded? If it's Texas, does that mean strength of schedule matters the most now? If it's Virginia, does that mean wins and losses only matter, basically, and that erodes any good non-conference games? So these are the kind of questions that we see. These are the nightmare scenarios the committee has to deal with. It's not going to be any of these 3 likely that I pointed out, but there is a nightmare scenario like this will come up. And you know what? I have a little bit of an approach to it that isn't quite the same as often what you'll see online. And we won't get into that today because we're already kind of over time. But we will get into that during the season. And but I'll leave everybody with this. If an SEC coach goes in his 3 seasons 8-4, 6-6, and then 3-9, and an ACC coach in his seasons goes 10-2, 9-3, 10-2, who's the better coach? Who's fired and who's not? So wins and losses matter to these coaches in job security, but apparently they don't matter when it comes to college football playoff. We had Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart both mentioning strength of schedule, but if those 2 men had 2 consecutive 3-9, 4-8 seasons against the very difficult SEC schedule, guess what? You're still fired. Wins and losses have to be the backbone of the sport. Anything else can be extra. Once we get past 2, a difference of 2 in the win-loss column, then we can have a discussion. If it's 3 or if it's 4 or further than that, out of here. At least as it pertains to the power of 4. The group of 6 should have a different rubric whatsoever, honestly. But I don't think we're going to be talking about an at-large group of 6 team anytime soon, just with the way the sport is unfolding if we stay at 12. Now, I know there was rumblings of a 20-team playoff earlier this week. I support 16. I know a lot of people support 16. I know the majority support 12 or 16, at least as college football fans go. The minority absolutely supports 24. Don't let them trick you into thinking it's otherwise. We should value the college football regular season more than we should value the playoff. The rivalry games you play, those are more of a Super Bowl than a potential CFP quarterfinal. That's just kind of my dialogue on the sport, and the fact that some people are trying to change that is distressing and it's depressing, and it should be fought against. These TV executives who all they want is money, and they see college football as this big cash cow, that should be fought against as well. And the way we fight against that is being very vocal and active. And honestly, if the product is bad enough, we shouldn't watch. And I know that's hard because we all love college football here, but sometimes some sacrifices need to be made, don't they? Okay, but we could have absolutely some nightmare scenarios coming up, and it's a very pivotal year for the College Football Playoff Committee. There will be a tough decision to make somewhere along the way. How they make it and what they decide to do will be, this year, the direction the sport goes in the future. It's a very important year in college football, not just for the teams and the coaches, but also for executives and the committee to make sure we have the right 10, 11, 12, although one team will probably get a pass in there that's not part of the top 12. Could be the ACC, Big Ten, or Group of 6 champion. It'll be one of those 3. We've seen it both years so far, but we're going to have great teams battling for the championship this year. But the committee, how they seed them, is going to be extremely important, more important than ever, and it will shape the direction the sport goes in the future. All right, so next week we are going to give you my top 25 and my top 12, and in that top 12 bracket, we are going to pick who is my national champion, which I'm kind of nervous about because I could be very wrong. Last year I had Ohio State playing Penn State in the title. Penn State went 6-6. Could see that again. We'll see. Remember, last year in the top 25, only 13 teams in that remained ranked at the end of the season. So about half of them were unranked. We're also going to discuss the AP top 25 that comes out. Obviously, preseason polls only carry so much water, as I just mentioned about 10 seconds ago. But it's still fun to discuss because we love college football and we love ranking things. And honestly, the AP poll is where those two things meet. And so we'll discuss that as well, even though it probably won't carry any water the rest of the season. So that is what we'll get into next week. 2 weeks' time, I'm going to give you an 138-team FBS preview. That should be awesome. So very much looking forward to that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great evening. Goodbye.